figure out how to pay for school. And I'm a car nut. I'm a major car nut. I'm a race car driver. I love cars. I bought a 1999 Honda Passport at the auction. I got 10 minutes out of the auction, overheated. I didn't even have enough money to tow the car home. It took me 5 hours to get home that day. But I got through it, and I kept reinvesting in myself. I got my money back out of that car and bought another car. I sold that car, I got another car, and I got 2 cars. Kept doing it, I got 10 cars. Kept doing it, I got a car dealership. Got 2 car dealerships, got a paint shop, finance shop, mechanic shop. Ended up owning and co-owning 15 car dealerships and becoming the #1 independent car buyer in Intermountain West. So, I'm a car guy. To the T. I got asked by Mark Victor Hansen in 2016, he said, hey, he was my client, he bought all his cars since 2010. I've seen what you've done in this car business. I've got an idea for a startup. I want to start an energy company and I want you to run operations on it. So I said, okay, this is a big change, but what an opportunity to work with someone like that. So I left the car business, which I was making a lot of money in, and went to a startup with multiplier forces, not one and one and linear, but exponential growth, quantum growth, big things that happen. So started Operations X. I had employed people in the Philippines since 2010 in my car dealership, so I was pretty cutting edge for an entrepreneur in 2010, and we crushed everyone because I could post 300 ads at night and no one else could figure out how to do it, and this was before automation, and all the clients came to my car dealerships instead of the other ones. So I thought, how can I take these resources and help put them into other people's companies so that they can help other people like it helped me. So I started Operations X, partnered with a guy, 550 people in the Philippines are running medical payment processing, transferred into doing pay full-time employees. COVID hit, no one wanted employees anymore, they didn't know what was happening, but they wanted solutions. You go, Preston, I'm a professional speaker, there's no events anymore. I need to reinvent my company. So I started putting these projects there. I got the people. Let's build your company online. So we started building these online versions of the companies with my people in the Philippines, which started a bunch of partnerships and different things like that. Now I run 21 websites and have a lot of different companies. Some of you here are partners with different things. So that's me, but that's the business side of me. So I'm definitely a serial entrepreneur. I'm definitely a business builder at heart. And I'm very good at solving problems. So give me your problem. Because that's what everyone does. They say, how do I do this? And I gotta figure out how to do it. Sometimes they're crazy ideas.
I'm an immigrant kid. My parents immigrated to Newark, New Jersey from Portugal when I was 6 years old. I grew up with domestic violence of every possible way you can think of. Suicidal at 16 because I said, well, my mom doesn't deserve it, you know, I can't do that to her. And I decided early on, I will never give anyone or anything the satisfaction of my demise. But God has a sense of humor. So on my 18th birthday, I died in a car accident. I had a massive car accident, woke up in the hospital looking down at my body and saying, expletive, who's gonna tell my mom I'm dead? Right, trying to bring her all full circle. So I decided at that point that, because I had died without having lived, you know, without having had a girlfriend, without having any of life's experiences, because of having grown up in a very oppressive, never be anything but a doormat for people, right? That was not what you want to tell your kids, but that's how I unfortunately grew up. But my life changed, and because I was always told that I wasn't smart enough, and I did not want to prove anybody right. So I set off to prove people wrong, prove my father wrong. Had that massive car accident gave me traumatic brain injury, so my memory still isn't what it should be, what I'd love it to be, but it is what it is. We're ever evolving and growing. I live today, and I started telling you a little bit about it the other day. My drug is adrenaline, you know, and I don't practice as much of it as I used to because as we get older, kids and responsibilities and everything else. But if it went fast, I strapped my ass to it. You know, if every opportunity I had, I'd put a couple pennies together and I'd travel somewhere because, again, if I was going to die, I was going to have experienced life, because life is not to be just survived, not to just exist, but to taste it, to feel it, to experience it, right? So I've been in real estate since I was 18. At the time, now it's pretty common. As I got into real estate, despite my father physically, literally bet me $1,000 that I would fail, and that I'd have to go work with him if I didn't do something in 3 months.
Did he pay?
So, the funny thing about that is my father was in construction, but he didn't own the company. He was a laborer. And I'm like, well, I just broke my body, so that's not going to work for me. So then I went full time, and my goal was to make more money than he ever did. And I did. By the time I was 21 or 22 years old, I did that. I opened up my own real estate company at 24 years old, which was, again, probably at the time in New Jersey, we were definitely the youngest real estate company. And then I bought my first house. Well, actually, I bought my first house when I was 23, started the real estate office when I was 24, but it changed again at 28 years old. So at 28, I went to my first Tony Robbins event, and it changed my life. It changed my life for a couple of different reasons. Number one, two biggest things, and I shared this with a couple of you yesterday, two biggest things I learned was where focus goes, energy flows. So I'm right in line with Preston here about, you know, what he does and the mindset and EQ and everything else, because I didn't learn any of that growing up. It was the opposite of that. But so I learned focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. You get to choose how you feel today. Happiness is an inside job because you get to focus on what it is that you want to experience. You focus on problems, you find more problems. You focus on the solution, you find the solution. Right? You focus on things to be grateful for, you're going to find so much to be grateful for. As he said, your heart beats without you thinking about it. Your lungs breathe without you thinking about it. So it's about gratitude. So where focus goes, energy flows. And that started to change. And then when he said, life is happening for you, not to you, and that was deep, because it gave me an awakening and an awareness of life and what my life is and where it's going. Why? Because all throughout that time I was making money, and I said, man, I'd give up everything to not have experienced that accident, because it broke me. I still deal with knee and shoulder issues and back issues and memory issues all the way from then. And I said, that accident came to derail me, knock me off course. But I was so wrong. I realized that accident came to save my life, because I wouldn't be here today. Putting us into the course to learn and to grow and to become who it is you're destined to become. Because life is happening for you, not to you. It's happening because this bad thing happens because you need to grow to it in order to become the person that you need to become, to do the things you want to do, to live the life you want to live, to make the impact you want to make. If you have an opportunity that comes your way and you have not seen the other side of it, you don't even recognize the opportunity. And even if you recognize the opportunity, you grab onto it, you don't have the strength to hang on to it. You don't know what to do. Luck can get you in the door.
Yeah, so people ask us, you know, why did you write the book Ask? You know, or like, you wrote a whole book on Ask? But so the reason, you know, we are so blessed to travel around the world, meet the most amazing people in the world, and people have a lot of issues. You know, even the best people, the most successful people have problems. We all do it. And so we said, you know, what's the best way that we can really help people, these talented, amazing people, when they get into these difficulties, challenges, tribulations. And so we kind of started reflecting on our own lives, like it hasn't always been perfect. We've had our own problems, right? Independently and together, very serious challenges in our lives. Like, well, how do we do it? You know, how do we stay so happy? How do we transcend these issues? And so when we really broke it down, it came down to this idea. It's like, every time we have a challenge, we get out of it by asking the right questions at the right time, in the right way, to the right people. And as we started to sort of peel back that onion a little bit more, we realized, this is so huge. It's all about the questions you ask, right? Everything in this life comes down to the questions you're asking yourself, right? So your life basically will be determined by the questions you ask, if you think about it, and where that leads you. So
the cliche that I wrote is the size of your question determines size of the result. So if you say bankrupt was Reverend Ike, and we've just finished his biography, and Reverend Ike, I tried to be Bucky Fuller because I've been graduate school of the smartest guy on the planet, Einstein, best student arguably, and we discussed that, but that's not today. And you know, I said, what if I go bankrupt? So I checked the biggest library in the world, New York Public Library. Go ahead and check that book out, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself. Well, It was my best words experience because it got me out of that into speaking, into writing. And so what we're teaching, the size of your question, if you say, how am I going to make 100 grand, that's all your subconscious will figure out because it's teleological. That means you set a goal, you get a goal. But if you say, how do I make $1 million a year or how do I make 10 million, subconscious doesn't care. That's why I was walking over and you and I were talking about Esther, and Esther says, well, it doesn't take any more.
It's really that reflective journey. It's so important because so many of us, like life is happening so quickly, we don't take the time to just be still and ask ourselves and listen for the answers. And it is so powerful when we do that. We're going to get into that at the end. We're going to do some specific questions on that.
We have one for all.
Yeah. And then asking others, that's really the bonding journey, right? Because you can't do this life alone. You cannot. And I think so much, even though we're like superficially connected on social media, we're very disconnected, like we said, it's one of the roadblocks, right? We're not, people are presenting themselves on social media as these, you know, amazing, like, I have it all together, I don't need anything. It's not true. So I got my real estate license. And a year and a half from the time that I was turning over the food stamps, I'm now working for the biggest home builder in our valley, and I became the #1 realtor at our company. And suddenly I had done a couple of television commercials that went national, so I was getting like the residual income. And so it was like a 180-degree change.
Mark's really proud, by the way.
Well, and what was great is
I am.
I had to join Screen Actors Guild. They made you, if you book so much money, it's like the best insurance in the world. They sent me this packet and I'm like, are you serious? I get free insurance, health insurance for myself and my little boy. Like the best, I mean, especially back then, SAG was amazing, like the best insurance benefits. You just 100% paid. You got it. Was such a 180-degree turn. I'm like, I would think back about it today. It was like, it would have been so easy for me to just like cascade down into my victimhood because I'm like, I had a lot of reasons, you know. I'm a young mother, no one's helping me. But I'm just so thankful that that question came into my mind and it really caused me to pivot, and a powerful question can cause you to pivot. Like, am I doing the best I can, you know? Or am I taking the easy way out? And I think we all can fall into that trap sometimes, you know, we get into victim mode or start feeling sorry for ourselves. But if we can like ask those questions at that time, it can be absolutely life-changing and cause you to pivot. A master asker, we call it. You need to believe, #1, that you deserve what you're asking for. You know, you really do. And #2, you need to believe that the answers or the thing you're seeking is out there for you. You just haven't met up with it yet, but you're going to keep asking until you do. So belief is the first way to prepare. And then action, of course, we talked about this before, you know, you have to keep things in motion in this physical world. So when you start asking, you get an idea, things start to come to you. Sure, you like pick up that phone, pick that person you thought of calling or whatever it is, because you've got to take it and put it in motion. And the third piece is visualization. You can't, when you're asking, you need to get specific. And so you need to see the picture of what you want in your mind, right? Take some time to do that. It's so important to visualize the pictures of what you want to realize, basically.
Just a visualization, one point on it. When I was going to Reverend Knight's church for 7 years in New York, I go to Peel in the morning, this guy who wrote Power Positive Thinking, and then Reverend Knight does the best visualization on YouTube. I mean, he's dead. He passed away in 2009, of course, when he wrote a book, but you really need to watch his visualization because he really takes you into, you close your outer eyes, open your inner eyes to one side, the secret place of the Most High, which is what Christ did, right? He says, go inside the secret place, shut the door on doubt and fear. I mean, Christ is very clear in the New Testament what you're supposed to do. Again, only Reverend Knight taught it. I grew up I had to go to Lutheran Church and Baptist Church every Sunday because Mom was one, Dad was the other. And you know, they're boring and all that. Relative to Ike, I mean, here's this flamboyant guy that never wore the same suit twice. I've been 4 marketplaces, I'll tell you, but one was the life insurance business. We're gonna have 11,000 people in Washington, D.C. in life insurance business and 15,000 in April 27th and 28th in Florida. These are big places that sell a lot of books to kickstart your book. He calls up and says, whoa, COVID happened and no bookstores are taking books and you guys are SOL, situation on luck, I'll do good language.
Situation.
And we were stuck and we said, whoa. He said, no, we're not gonna publish this. No, Anthony, that isn't the way we play. I said, I ain't taking every problem, bankruptcy, upside down, divorce, all kinds of stuff. I get to turn it around 180 degrees. Let us handle it. He said, are you sure you and Crystal can handle it? I said, no, she can. She will figure this out.
No, but it turns out it was the right time to release the book because people needed it, right? We were all stuck at home, we were scared, we were terrified, right? And it was the very time we needed to start asking questions. We needed to go inside to that quiet place and really start to figure out what was what. And I think so many good things came from that, as much as we all hated the lockdowns and things like that. It's just there was something that happened, I think, to people internally that made us realize a lot of things. And it was the perfect time. We were on so many podcasts with this book.
I want to add one thing to what you said. So remember, there's no talk. We can't leave our house, and thank God for Zoom. I mean, the only thing the mistake we made is not investing in Zoom, which all of us should have done. Anyhow, so whatever I'm like, I didn't counter up.
I didn't know they were public.
Sorry?
I didn't know they were public.
Yeah, they are, and you would have been really rich, like 1,000 times rich. Anyhow, so we're on Zoom, and we find all the top podcasters, and I'm going to be on the cover of Podcast Magazine here in another month. So, and there's like 2 million podcasters in America, and what I'll teach you when we get the books is you want to go on the big podcasts only if you can. Because there's some of these guys, like we're on a show with 2 million people, 10 million people in Vietnam, and people say, well, why would you do it? And we're in with 200 million people in Nicaragua, and LA is coming to visit, I forgot to tell you, in April. Nigeria, the richest country in Africa, where my teacher, Bucky, left Harvard, went and taught in Nigeria. He said they got the best topsoil, right? And meaning best thinking, right? So, not that all Africa is not brilliant with 1,500,000,000 people. I'm not doing that. That's not my rap. And by the way, our publisher is going to sell our book on River Night big in Africa because they had 20 million people there, 20 million here, 26 Rolls Royces, 8 mansions. You know, but he was really a supernatural healer, which is what really, thank God, Crystal saw that. And Anthony said, okay, if you guys are sure, we'll do this. We got the best editor. Just, it's amazing. And the whole family did it. We got to open up the Smithsonian Institute in the biggest black museum in Washington, D.C. By the way, I can't go backwards in time, so if it's 8 weeks, I can't tell you. The point I'm making here, on Stuck, he said there's no way to sell it, and we sold a gazillion books on podcasts, because podcast is a new radio, it's the new TV, and it's going to be more bigger in the future, certainly.
No, you're good. So, you know, it's funny because we come into this world, all of us do, as these beautiful little uncorrupted askers, right? As children, we are not afraid to ask who, what, when, where, why, how, right? Every second. And we're also not afraid to ask for more, right, Brooke? we come entitled, like, we know how special we are, you know, and then it's like, depending on how you're parented, what happens in your school years, you know, you're told like, be quiet, stop asking so many questions, you know, don't ask unless you're called on. And then you go to work and your opinions aren't valued, and you try to ask questions at your job, and again, you're shut down. And so over time, that beautiful ability to ask questions literally gets squished out of us. And, you know, we find ourselves as full-grown adults scared to ask, know everything. And because we'll never stop learning in this lifetime. That's how children evolve so quickly, right? But then we stop doing that because we feel ashamed, and we need to keep doing that, you know, because we'll never have all the information we need. We'll never have all the experiences we need. So we need to just keep going and keep asking. And yeah, I mean, it's part of the human spirit that we're born with. Yeah. So you want to talk about it?
So we interview all the best askers in the world. I'd written a previous book to this called The Aladdin Factor, which when Jack and I got turned down 144 times for chicken soup, we had a great agent who fired us, and that cost him $15 million because we did $2 billion in retail and $1 billion in licensing, because I created licensing. But we're with Berkeley, and the lady says, well, Mark, you wrote this book called Dare to Ask. We sold 360,000 copies from the platform. We'll take it, but you got to do a series. And luckily, Jack and I had set my jacuzzi drinking booze and wine, actually. And one night, we brought 134 titles we wanted, some of which were very colorful, because Dr. Canfield was very funny. Anyhow, I got to leave it alone. So we did Dare to Ask, Dare to Ask all the way to Dare to Know God, and the second one was the first one, Dare to Win, which I wrote, and then Jack says did a kiss on it, and then suddenly Berkeley calls us up and said, hey, you guys gotta do this book in 2 months or we're gonna sue you, because we were number 1 and number 2. At that time we had number 1 and number 2 58 weeks in a row. And Berkeley had a contract with us, and I said, Jack, they're suing us. He said, no, what are you gonna do? I said, no, Jack, it's Jack and Mark who sued, not Mark. He sued both of us to get this done. He said, well, you gotta go finish it, and I did. Anyhow, so long story short, but then we came up with this book. We said, what are the obstacles? We put a person and a story with everything, with unworthiness, we think is the priority, and obviously I'll do the abbreviated story, but Bob Proctor and I own 2 great companies. We got the 3% Club and $1 Million Forum. And Bob used to, just very abbreviated, comes out of the Navy in Canada, he's in Toronto, is earning $4,000 a month, owes $6,000 a month, sitting in the bar with other firemen, and looks around and goes, God, I'm drinking every night and I'm useless, this isn't what I want. And he goes, the richest guy he knows, Ray Stanfield, who's a good friend, says, what did you do? He said, you read Think and Grow Rich and you really own it. Bob read that every day of his life, sort of like a Bible, got out of unworthiness, starts washing windows, and the guys at the fire station made fun of him. So he said, well, you guys keep making fun of me, I won't hire you. And I'll make all of you rich. He said, I made $25,000 the first month. They made $175,000 first year. Second year he made $1 million. He was washing windows and hiring the banker and everybody to wash windows at night in commercial buildings and fucking clock was in the morning. And he made everyone rich in Toronto and then in Montreal and then in Atlanta. So the point is, every one of us has got to work on our worthiness every day. All of us can get slapped in the head innocently, naive, and take Crystal to a huge story in a second about the wonderful, I won't give the end, doubt. All of us have doubt, and what you gotta do is you gotta step on all your fears. Napoleon Hill wrote all the fireside chats, you know, and confront you for FDR, confront your fear, make it disappear. He wrote us out of the depression, 29th, 30th. Excuseology, got a great story about my own brother who goofed up with that one. Fear, you know, you confront fear, make it disappear. We said pattern paralysis, where you keep doing the same thing, expect something new. And disconnection, unfortunately, our kids think they're connected because they're on phones. We've been to China 88 times over 20 years. I was there more than her. I wouldn't go now because I don't like the CCP. The people of China are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. CCP is dangerous. But everybody in China, we're walking down the street, and we always got they're on Bentleys and Rolls Royces, and they always have 2 phones, and they're walking with us, and I go, what? And then the guy says, he drives us in his Rolls Royce and says, I'm going to take you to an American breakfast. But damn, I don't want to go to an American breakfast. We got really good food here, and he takes us to McDonald's. I couldn't tell him. We don't eat McDonald's when we're home. Crystal, you want to go through naivety?
No, so it's just important to look at all the.
No. I'm going to start my own publishing company. Goes down to Nashville, starts.
From asking for what you need, what you want, what you deserve, right? And we all have them. And you know, when you start to go through them, you understand which ones you have. I like to let me just talk about the naivete one, because I tell the story in the book how we hired, when my kids were very young, we hired a woman from the Philippines to help take care of them. And Melda would she'd make all this great food for us every day, and she's just so loving with the kids. Preston loved her Hansen. She'd make it for him anytime he asked. And so she even made it for your school one time. Yeah. But one day she showed up with this fruit.
I did a project in 6th grade on the Philippines.
Yeah.
Authentic food.
Authentic real food. She was so adorable. Anyhow, so she shows up with this fruit. She cuts it on a plate for me one morning. And I already traveled all over Europe and everything. I thought I was so worldly. She's like, try this. And I said, what is it? And she goes, this is the best fruit I've ever tasted. And she goes, it's mango. And I go, mango? How come I've never tried a mango? I felt so stupid. I'm thinking, where should we get it? Like, she ordered it from the Philippines. She goes, at the grocery store. And I'm like, I missed that at the grocery store. But you know what? It's like, I'm naive. We're all naive to what we don't know, right? So I was a girl who was raised in Idaho with a lot of potatoes, but no mangoes. And so, you know, it's so easy for us to just pass by all these wonderful things in our lives because we don't, have the experience with that person, or that maybe it's an opportunity that we're just walking by. Maybe it's someone who could be your next best colleague or friend or whatever, and you just because it's not in your realm of experience, you just walk by it. And so it's so important for us to think about what we're naive about, right? And open our minds more, just like the curious child, and wonder more about people and things and opportunities. And so that's a big one. That's a big roadblock to asking that I think people don't think about very often, you know, in addition to all these other ones. It's really that reflective journey. It's so important because so many of us, like, life is happening so quickly, we don't take the time to just be still and ask ourselves and listen for the answers. And it is so powerful when we do that. We're going to get into that at the end. We're going to do some specific questions on that.
We have one for all.
Yeah. And then asking others, that's really the bonding journey, right? Because you can't do this life alone. You cannot. And I think so much, even though we're like superficially connected on social media, we're very disconnected, like we said, it's one of the roadblocks, right? We're not, people are presenting themselves on social media as these, you know, amazing, like, I have it all together, I don't need anything. It's not true. So I got my real estate license. And a year and a half from the time that I was turning over the food stamps, I'm now working for the biggest home builder in our valley, and I became the #1 realtor at our company. And suddenly I had done a couple of television commercials that went national, so I was getting like the residual income. And so it was like a 180-degree change.
Mark's really proud, by the way.
Well, and what was great is I had to join Screen Actors Guild. They made you, if you work so much money, it's like the best insurance in the world. They sent me this packet and I'm like, are you serious? I get free insurance, health insurance for myself and my little boy. Like the best, I mean, especially back then, SAG was amazing, like the best insurance benefits, you just 100% paid. It was such a 180-degree turn. I'm like, I didn't think back about it, Danny. It's like, it would have been so easy for me to just like cascade down into my victimhood because I'm like, I'm young. Yeah, I had a lot of reasons, you know. I'm a young mother, no one's helping me. But I'm just so thankful that that question came into my mind and it really caused me to pivot. And a powerful question can cause you to pivot. Like, am I doing the best I can? You know, or am I taking the easy way out? And I think we all can fall into that trap sometimes, you know, we get into victim modes or feeling sorry for ourselves, but if we can like ask those questions at that time, it can be absolutely life-changing and cause you to pivot.
Local taxi, and that's gonna work. And here's, we got a van like the old Town and Country van, if you remember what happens. You cannot ask yourself a question. This is why you gotta be careful and ask positive questions. What kind of questions, everyone?
Positive.
Because if you ask negative, you'll figure out how to go the wrong direction.
That's right.
You're all born over-endowed. It depends on whose numbers you want to believe. You know, 18 billion brain cells. Deepak Chopra says 1 trillion brain cells. I don't care. It's more you need. And when I was in graduate school with Bucky Fuller, he couldn't meet with the 2 Nobel Prize winners. I'd read their 2 books, Watson and Crick, the guys who did DNA and RNA, on the cover of Newsweek Connect. And they said, look, we're only using 2 strands of our DNA, so you got 26 that aren't used because you're not calling on them. And I'm saying that all Elon Musk does and all of us are called on to do is call on more. And we think, and unless you got a better solution, when you ask, you get illumination. We've given that as an example at least 6 or 7 times just now. You're going to have a solution. I mean, I say I want to be a speaker, then I'm all of a sudden a speaker, and then everyone says, well, boy, you're such a good storyteller. You have a book, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Insights. If you keep asking yourself questions, you're going to grow in your insights. You're going to have breakthroughs. And when you have breakthroughs, we can break through everybody else. And because some of you are talking to me outside, I'll just do this real quick. We all see the media saying where the breakdowns are, but my opinion, back to Elon Musk, he's got 40,000 satellites in the air. He's creating a brand new Pi Tesla phone, which is going to call all the way to Mars, according to him. He wears it.
Some people don't know who they are because they haven't gone up.
You know, like, investing in a person to sit there and coach me, I wish I knew that. I wish I knew that 20 years ago. If I would have had Sharon Lechter 20 years ago, I would have been rolling. Right? Like, if you got the right mentor from a right age, you're going to accelerate so much faster. They don't tell you that in the educational system. So I'm telling you that from a professor, from the highest level academia, you need a mentor. That was the best investment. I could have spent that, let's just say 10 grand. 10 grand for Sharon was equivalent to maybe $300,000-400,000 of educational system. Yeah, absolutely. Now catch 22. at 20 years old, I might not have been ready for the lessons that Sharon was giving me. So mentally, I could have been wasting money because she's telling me stuff and all I'm thinking about is hanging out with my friends. You know, so like the mindset wasn't there, so I'm wasting her lessons that she gave me because I'm not reading through what she's saying. I got an hour where it's costing me a lot of money. I better pay attention to everything she's saying. And if I can't get what she's saying, man, I'm wasting a lot of money, because especially at 20, that's a lot more to me, right? Mentor's important, but you also got to experience to find yourself first. See, I found myself. That's why it was easy to quickly translate what she was telling me. Go on Clubhouse and make a success of it. Because I already found myself. Finance is the science of the management of wealth for individuals, groups, or organizations. When I had that definition, I said, all right, well, then what does economics do? Because I have to define economics, even though I'm not really an economist. But they're attached to the hip. Economics came first. I better figure out this definition, make sure that I don't overlap and have an issue with my definition, right? So to make sure it works, I tested it by creating economics definition, which is the same thing, except for one thing. It's the science of the management of wealth for nations or its divisions. That's when I realized Adam Smith, the founder of economics in 1776, knew it all along. He wrote the book called The Wealth of Nations. So these slightly changes of definition is very important. You see, these two sciences are very similar. They both manage wealth. But the focus is what is extremely different. Well, in finance, it's individuals. It's Tony Rodriguez. It's Michelle Esther. It's Bobby. It's all you folks. Individuals, one by one. It's groups, chess clubs, mastermind groups. It's organizations, as small as mom and pop shop, as big as Coca-Cola. That's all finance. They're managing wealth for individuals, groups, organizations. Economics is management of wealth for nations or its divisions, cities, states, federal, etc. That's economics. Why is it so important, the definition? Because this time right here is the reason, actually it helped my work, because it expanded. And sorry folks, I have a little bit of a cold from the coming here to modern finance was really developing in the late 50s, early 60s. But at the same time, here's the money correlation. It's not just academics. Remember I told you earlier about academics not having quite as much value unless you apply it? Here's the application. You put science to diversification, one of the biggest concepts in finance, and at the same time, the company I work for, Vanguard Group, Jack Bogle, was creating the 500 index. The 500 index fund is a very unique concept, and now it controls the world. You guys don't understand that you're being controlled, and 80-90% of the world is being controlled by probably under 10 companies. 50% of the world is being controlled by 2 companies. One I worked for, which was at the largest investment company at the time. The second is BlackRock, which is now number 1. The idea was born in finance. Diversification, we create a mutual fund of 500 investments, of the top 500 investments. And you want to put your money in an IRA or your retirement account, it goes into this kind of mutual fund. It's low fee, all your risk is spread out. Now, in the industry, it's trillions of dollars. The whole world. Think about the world in terms of monetary wealth. About almost all of it is in these kind of funds. And if you don't understand what mutual funds are, I definitely encourage you to start looking into it, because finance is the quintessential explanation, the history of it, of what you put the concepts to use, because everything from the beginning of it is now applied outward. Okay, so that's the necessity of finance, folks. It's necessary. That's a little bit of the history there. And the second book I wrote, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance. Basically, I boiled down thousands and thousands of lessons, let's just say from the past few thousand years, and I put them into 218 principles. And I think Mark talked about this. I know Jack told me, Jack Canfield, when he first read the book, he goes, because he's got a book on principles. He's like, principles are timeless lessons. It's different than rules. Rules are made by humans. I don't really need to write any more books for the rest of my life. I have literally hundreds of books I could have wrote, but when I realized that last book something wasn't working, wasn't getting out to the masses, I stopped writing. I stopped writing because I realized I have to figure out what the problem was. You know what the problem was? I wasn't a marketer. Which in the field of biology is really the greatest scientific art of evolution. And that's what helped make a lot of my mental thought processes. And I don't want to get into that here because we can talk literally for hours about those conclusions. If you really want to rack your brain, and Preston will love this. I don't know if you know, if you read it, but chapter 37, Evolution of Evolution. Where, you know, it's funny, I published that early 2016, and it's all coming true now. Change can happen. It can even happen for change itself. The greatest laws in the universe, not rules, actual principles, can change. Evolution can change. The principle of evolution is changing right now.
And I'm kind of a control freak. Any other control freaks here? A couple people admitting that. What about a few of you didn't raise your hand are controlling yourself, right? And so I had a client at 25 asked me to leave public accounting and go with him. And I went back to my condo. And back then, this was before PCs, before cell phones. I know, dinosaur days. Use the old yellow legal pad. Yes. Pros and cons. It didn't help me a bit. I could argue both sides. But my hand took off across the top of the page and said, why not? And that is still my mantra today. Why not? Play the new path. Why not solve a problem? Why not serve? And why not chart a new course? And in doing that, that's a very entrepreneurial mindset. A lot of us ask why, and you're expecting somebody to give you an answer. That's from outside. When you say why not, it comes from within. And when people say find your why, that's your passion, that's different. But you know, it's really something that I've never looked back. I've always known that this was for me to be able to solve problems and serving needs. And so I said, my first entrepreneur, that's what was a women's magazine. I was doing some sales when you sold that to work people in magazine. And then the children's book sounds, they have the sound strips down the side. I started that industry, but you know that job.
What was that called?
When kids, I know it's hard to believe, kids did not have any electronics. They didn't have any screen time. So hard to think of time to do that. But so we were writing this thing with electronics in it. And we said, how can parents not really work? How are they going to trust us? And so we aligned with little companies like Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street, Marvel Comics. First time around for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Great for us. So the first year we thought we were hot stuff, $1 million in sales. And we went to 23, and the year we were 52 million is the year we sold Criniti. And that's actually when we matured Arizona, so we made 33 years. And so I always learned that it's through the power of association. And it's how you grow, and it's how you can speed to market's everything. So do I want to try and build it on my own? No, I want to find somebody that has it and does it well that I can align with, because it helps me accelerate. Because business is about momentum. Money is about momentum. And the longer your money stays stagnant, the less you make and the less impact that you have. And so my oldest son in 1992 went off in September to go to ASU here. Came home at Christmas time in credit card debt. No, I didn't even know he had credit cards. He'd gotten to campus, and there was a table that said free pizza, free money, free t-shirt, free money. Some of you may have experienced that. He had a really good time this first semester in college. He came home in December, and he was in credit card debt. And we wouldn't bail him out, and we always made the right decisions with that one was. But that was December of 1992, and that's when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial education, entrepreneurship education, because I knew that I had been gifted with an experience that the vast majority of people did not. Understanding the power of money, understanding how to buy, build, and create assets. And I had taught my children, and yet he screwed up. And so it's something that I realized we had to do a better job. We needed to teach our kids about money in school. And so I'm as passionate about that today as I was in December of 1992. In fact, on Tuesday, or 3rd, is that when I went to the treasurer? No, when? No, it was Wednesday. So Wednesday, I was meeting with the Arizona State Treasurer as well as the head of education for Arizona. Again, continuing to push for more requirements for financial education here in the state. I am the chairman of the K-12 Financial Literacy Commission for Arizona. And this was so hard to believe before the internet, before Amazon. We were a true viral marketing success because one of you probably read it and told somebody else about it. Had an impact. Or you read it because someone told you to read it, right? And so we were very blessed that we were able to truly shift the needle. And 10 years in, we were at the height of our success, millions of dollars a day, let alone a month. And we were no longer aligned on what we wanted to do. So I left Rich Dad in March of 2007. And we ended up in litigation for a while, unfortunately. But sometimes you have to close the door in your life so other doors will open. And I so strongly believe that. And I never regretted the decision because you have to stand in your own power. He wanted to go into franchising. It was a great model for us, terrible model for the franchisee. So I could not support that. And that's what the trigger that made me decide to leave. But a few months later, I got the phone call from President Bush asking me to be on the first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. And I share that with you because I wouldn't have had that call had I still been a Rich Dad. So you never know what's waiting for you. You have to make sure that you are very guarded with what you do and how you spend your time. I served both President Bush and Obama in case of both sides of the aisle. It was a nonpartisan issue, or it should be. And then in March of 2008, if you guys remember what the economy was doing back then, I got a phone call from Don Green, who's the CEO director of the Napoleon Program. You know, I read Think and Grow Rich when I was 19. How many of you have read Think and Grow Rich? You see, okay, almost everybody. Fantastic. If not, I'd suggest putting it on your reading list. But he called me because we knew each other because we would be in booths next to each other at book fairs. So we got to become friends. And he had just found that I had left Rich Dad. And he asked me to step in and help re-energize Napoleon Hill's teachers for the modern reader. Because many young people, and my definition of young is getting older and older. So under 50, didn't know Napoleon Hill, didn't know Think and Grow Rich. But they knew his work. Napoleon Hill's the one that coined the term Mastermind. That's what we're doing this week. He talked about pay yourself first. That came from him. The concept of the law of attraction actually came from Napoleon Hill, not Rhonda Byrne. And then he talked about whatever your mind can conceive and believe, you can achieve. And all of that. So a lot of people know the impact of this work, but did not realize it came from him. So I had the incredible honor to not only have built the largest personal finance brand, but to step in and revitalize the world's largest personal development brand. My first book was 3 Feet from Gold. Anybody read that?
Great book.
And Outwitting the Devil. How about that one?
Yes.
Outwitting the Devil.
Thank you. And then Think and Grow Rich for Women, which I highly recommend to both women and men because it helps the men understand how we think. It's just a little different. And then Success is Something Greater. And so, yes, I am known as an author because I'm in my 28th book right now, and we've sold over 35 million books. But I'm really an entrepreneur. I just use books as my way of reaching people because my husband and I are superpowers as it relates to teaching people how to create passive income, how to create assets. My favorite word on earth is asset. Say asset.
Asset.
Say it with a smile.
Asset.
Okay, and then my tagline is assets are sexy. So say that. Should have filmed her.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to do. Say it again so they can all see. I want them to do the same thing. Assets are sexy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There you go. Right on your team for company's liquid gold assets.
Oh, yeah.
You're speaking my language.
The older you get, the sexier they become.
Amen.
Other assets start drooping. It's really important. And that's what gives you financial freedom. So you are financially free. You write this down. You are financially free when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. It's just that simple. And it does not have to be millions of dollars. When I met Robert Kiyosaki, he lived at the Point in Phoenix in a 2-bedroom condo, and he owned 2 small apartment complexes. People talk about it in Retire Young, Retire Rich. He was making $100,000 a year in passive income, and his expenses were between $30,000 and $35,000. So he was financially free. That was the message that was so important for me to get out. That was the essence of what we taught in the game Cash Flow, and that is the essence of what I teach now. Our second book was called Cash Flow Quadrant. How many of you are familiar with that? A couple of you are not. All right. Imagine a quadrant like this. Okay? And on the left side, the top left is E for employee. Bottom left is S for self-employed, solopreneur. The top right is B for business owner. Bottom right is I for investor. Those are the 4 ways we make money. The left side, which is employee and solopreneur, superstar, right? That is you chasing money. You're exchanging time for money. Problem is, there's only so many days in the week and so many hours in the day. But that is what school teaches us, that we are supposed to do it on our own. And so our superpower is helping people move to the right side of the equation, where at the top right is business owner. Investing in businesses, creating a true business. You own a business, not a job, and a true business that's generating wealth for you. And then as an investor, you hold your money in all kinds of investments. So assets are businesses, real estate, paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Digital currency falls under that, given the day, whether it's up or down. And then intellectual property. And those are the areas that are most competitive, and that's how you can build your long-term generational wealth. Financial planners tell you to diversify between paper assets, stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. I go hogwash. You have to diversify across asset categories, businesses, real estate, stocks and bonds, right? Mutual funds, intellectual property, so that when the market does what it's been doing this last few months, you are protected, because not every asset drops at the same time. And so I continue to work in that vein. Obviously, while I was on the President's Advisory Council, we passed the Credit Card Act of 2009, and that I'm very proud of. I can't take credit for the bill, but I was a very squeaky wheel. Prohibits credit card companies from soliciting kids on campus. And so that was my full circle of where my passion started, and we were able to do that. So still today, if you went to college since 2010, you probably were not approached for credit cards. You still got solicitations in the mail, but they could not be predatory on campus, and I'm very proud of that. So each of us has a chance to change the world. And each of you is an expert. Say, I'm an expert.
I'm an expert.
Say it with a smile.
I'm an expert.
And so we have the power of words. We can control 3 things: our thoughts, our words, our actions. That's it. Thoughts, words, actions. And so when you say, I am an expert, you're one of many. So I want you to change one word. Say, I am the expert.
I am the expert.
Say it again.
I am the expert.
And so what we do as a company, as a team, as a mentor, we want to take you from being the expert to the authority. So say, I am the authority.
I am the authority.
How does that feel?
Totally excellent.
So every one of you is an authority, because God made you to be perfectly you. Not me, not Ange.
And you may not know this, but when everybody filled out their forms, they asked them, what have you mastered? That was one of the questions on the form. Everybody got asked, what have you mastered?
And so nobody's had your successes. Nobody's had your learning opportunities. And so you have the opportunity you're still here. You survived whatever mess you've been through, whether it was a death, a divorce, a financial setback, an illness. And so you have the opportunity to help other people that are coming up behind you. Turn your mess into your message, right? And have the ability to change the world. And nobody is, we all have this stinking thinking, I'm not good enough. We talk about it all the time. The problem is we don't do anything about it. And so that's what I really help people open their brain to what's causing and what's holding them back. Before the end of this visit, one of you would have come up, I'm sure you hear me talk about this, and said to me, your Rich Dad, Poor Dad changed my life. And no matter where I am, whether it's on the phone or in person, I stop them and I go, I'm so proud that something I wrote inspired you to change your life. But you need to own it. Instead of saying to Rich Dad, you know how many 35 million people, they're not all millionaires because they didn't take action, right? So own your own successes. And this is a big difference between men and women. You guys are fine at saying you're an expert. We will say, I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at it. And then you go, what a shriek. And I went through that too for a long time. I had to teach myself. Sometimes you start laughing when you say it in the mirror. No, I am a financial literacy expert. I am a global expert on financial literacy. I am very comfortable saying that. I wasn't always. And so it's you standing in your own power and knowing that you have a gift, you have a talent, and you also have an obligation. I want you to feel the obligation that you have to help other people. Growing up, my dad would ask me every night, Sharon, have you added value to someone's life today? He's been gone 17 years, but I still ask myself that every night. Because it's not just a life of success, it's a life of significance. And 10 years ago, I lost my youngest son. And as I shared with you, I've always played a very big game. Disney, Warner, Time Life, all these very big companies that I worked with, because I knew that's how we could spread the message. But I went insular. I basically put my head down. I was in grief, and I still work, but it's playing very small. And a couple of years into it, I decided that I should just retire out and push back with family and friends. And I actually heard my son in my ear saying, "Get over it, Mom, there's more for you to do." And so that, particularly with COVID, that's one of my strongest messages right now, is whatever stopped you in your tracks. Because every one of you have had something that stopped you in your tracks, right? And it could have been a death or a divorce, financial setback, illness. You're still here, and there's more for you to do. And realize that our true gift is time. We can make money, lose it, and make it back. But we don't get our time back. And that's becoming ever more present for me because I just turned 69. So it's never too late to solve a problem that's your beginning. When I get mad about something, I start a new company. So when COVID hit, I was absolutely distressed about all the negativity, because one of the things we teach in Outwitting the Devil about fear is your environment. And if your subconscious is constantly being bombarded by negativity, you become negative. And so I started a new initiative called ATMs, Abundance Tips and Mentorship, daily ATMs, taking a twist on bank deposits. But this is a mental deposit, a positive message every morning where I share things about money, things about focus, things about other areas of mentoring and supporting your life. And really starting your day off with a smile and realizing that you're in control of your thoughts. But if you got, I used to have the news running in the background all the time. And then I found myself really edgy. And so I turned it off. I don't even watch the news anymore. I check in every day and see what's happening, but I'm out of there. Because it's, the negative influence we have in our world right now are just horrible. So we need to find and amplify positive messaging. And that's my goal as well. So, and then I wrote Exit Rich, which is a book that I did with Inc. Magazine and Michelle Seiler Tucker. And it's about really understanding most business owners build a job, not a true business. They don't build the foundational elements of creating a business that's not only successful, but is sustainable, scalable, and eventually saleable. Now you can also still own it and exit rich. You can also bring in the right management team and get your time back. But the vast majority of business, 85% of businesses that try to sell themselves, because they've not been built appropriately. And so I'm really, and I know you are all getting a copy.
Yeah, we bought everyone a copy of the book, Exit Rich. So you all get one
Yes.
today.
I forgot to put on the sweater. I got that green shirt on. Like, look it up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, building up to something wasn't cutting into it. I mean, what the hell?
Camelback now. I mean, fun. That's really fun.
Yeah, like
I was here in 1985.
Yeah. Where do you live? Or just again?
I was
Pickles.
Hello.
This is for Instagram. Where the heck are you guys?
We're
Camelback Mountain.
And retreat! Woo!